If you want a genuinely fucking terrifying horror movie to watch tonight, I got you. Hello, welcome back to part 150 of my series, watching every horror movie of 2024. Today's movie is Daddy's Head, and you can stream this on Shudder. Daddy's Head is about this young boy whose dad just recently passed. His mom had passed several years ago, and so now he's left in the care of his stepmother, and him and his stepmother don't really get along very well. And one day, they start to be tormented by this figure that looks like his recently deceased dad. This creature design is so freaking good. It's so well thought out because it's scary because it has the face of his dad, but it's not really his dad or has the voice of his dad. So it kind of plays on this fear of like mimics or doppelgangers. And they found the perfect balance of like showing this creature because it was just enough where it was terrifying and like spooky and we wanted more of it, but then like not too much where it was like super cheesy and like we got desensitized to it. I definitely recommend watching this one at night because it's so freaky and deals with a lot of like shadows and like dark figures and stuff like that. But also I recommend watching it with someone because after me and my friends walked out of the theaters when we saw it at Fantastic Fest, we had so much to discuss about like theories about the movie because it ends on just like such a strong talking point. I love it. Overall, I gave Daddy's Head like a 9.5 out of 10. I truly loved this one. It's exactly what I'm looking for in a horror movie, and the director is just a gem of an individual. If you've seen Daddy's Head, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. I'm very curious. Hulu came out with a new horror movie for Halloween season, and it's so good. Let's talk about it. Hello and welcome back to part 151 of my series, watching every horror movie of 2024. Today's movie is Mr. Crockett, which came out on Hulu October 11th, but I watched the premiere of this at Fantastic Fest. Mr. Crockett is about this mom who finds this VHS tape of this thing called Mr. Crockett's World, and it's this show for kids, and she gives it to her kid, and he is instantly hooked on it. But little do we know that Mr. Crockett has very sinister plans for these families that watch this tape. This movie is just like downright a blast. It is so fun. It's so kooky and chaotic, but like still has moments where it like is scary and eerie. And I love that it was able to accomplish that. Even though you can watch this movie at any time of the year, I definitely recommend watching it this spooky season. There's something about it that is just giving Halloween vibes. I was also not expecting it to be as bloody and gory as it is because it has to do with like this children's show, but that was a nice little treat. Mr. Crockett is an absolute icon. I loved his character, and there's just something about this movie that feels so nostalgic because I think it has to do with like TV shows that feel very much like the ones we grew up on. I will say once we get to the third act and we change up settings a little bit, it kind of loses steam for me. However, I did like the way that they ended the movie. Overall, I gave Mr. Crockett a 7 out of 10. It's just like fun, kooky, and bloody. If you've seen it, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. I'm curious. With the release of Smile 2, let's recap Smile with full spoilers. The movie opens up with young Rose walking into her mom's room, clearly seeing that she died of an overdose. We jump to present-day Rose, and she is now a therapist, and she has a client in her room named Laura, and Laura is saying that her professor had offed himself in front of her. And ever since then, Laura is now just seeing people smiling at her. Laura then takes her life in front of Rose while she is freakishly smiling at her, and Rose is now completely traumatized. The police show up to take a statement from Rose about the death of Laura, and this is when we find out that Rose's ex is a cop and his name is Joel. Rose goes home where she lives with her fiance Trevor and their cat Mustache, and she's explaining to him everything that happened at work and how traumatized she is, but then now we see that Rose is starting to experience weird things like Laura was. Rose is back at work and she passes by a window and swears that she sees Laura standing in the parking lot just smiling at her. Rose brushes that off and then walks past one of her patients' room, Carl, where he's just sitting there staring at her, and then he starts saying, "You're going to die," and then Rose calls for help and they come and restrain Carl. Then we find out that none of that actually happened. That was just Rose hallucinating, and then she gets in trouble by her boss and he puts her on a paid week off. So now that Rose is on a paid week off and she feels like she's losing her mind, she's trying to dive deeper into her patient Laura and what was going on. So she's listening to the audio recording of their last session, and she's looking closer into the computer, feeling like she's hearing some type of voice on the audio recording, everything. And then we get one of the biggest jump scares in the movies where this entity comes out and screams Rose. Because of everything that Rose has been going through, she decides to go back to therapy with her regular therapist. At this point, Rose is like completely spiraling, but she still goes to her nephew's birthday party and he's excited to open her gift. But when he opens it, he realizes that it's Aunt Rose's dead cat mustache and everyone freaks out. Rose then tries to defend herself and saying that it's not her and it's whatever is like terrorizing her, and then she sees one of the party goers just sitting there smiling at her and she loses it even more. Later that night, Rose is trying to tell her fiance everything that she thinks is going on, and she tells him that she thinks that her patient Laura had this weird evil entity inside of her, and that's why she was seeing smiling things, and when she died, it was transferred to her, and that's why now she's seeing all these weird smiling things too. He doesn't believe anything that she's saying as he thinks it sounds crazy, and he starts to talk about how he thinks that maybe it's hereditary because he knows that Rose's mom was very unwell. Later that night, after Rose's fiance doesn't believe her, she decides to further look into Laura's professor and who he was, because she remembers before Laura died, she was saying that he was just smiling at her. Rose finds the name of the professor and finds the wife, and she goes to the house and pretends to be a journalist to try to get more information out of the wife. The wife said that before the professor died, he was complaining of hallucinations and people just smiling at him, and he even drew a bunch of people just smiling. And the wife reveals to Rose that before the professor took his life, he actually saw somebody else take their life in front of him, and this is when Rose realizes there might be a pattern. So then Rose rushes to her ex's house, Joel, and she has him use his cop skills by looking up everybody that's recently been involved in this. So Laura, and then the professor, and then whoever died before the professor. And they're realizing that there is a pattern. Now with all this information, Rose is rushing home, and she finds out that her fiance Trevor had set up this intervention with her therapist, and she gets pissed off that nobody's believing her, so she rushes to her sister's house to try to tell her everything that's going on. And Rose rushes to her sister's house to try to let her know that she's now been infected by this weird pattern where everybody that's died has watched somebody else die in front of them, but Holly's just like, you're crazy just like mom was crazy. Pissed off, Rose goes back to the car, and then we see an infamous jump scare where Holly's rushing towards the car, and then we see her head like flip upside down. Meanwhile, Joel is still looking all of this up, and he finds out that this pattern has gone back to several people. However, there is one blip in the pattern. They learn that the blip is that this one guy didn't unalive himself. He actually unalived somebody else in front of a witness, and that's how the entity transferred over. So they visit him in prison, and he's like, yeah, you don't actually have to unalive yourself. You just have to unalive somebody, but there has to be a witness in order for it to transfer. It's a new day, and Rose is at home, and her therapist makes a house visit, but then while her therapist is there, she gets a call and she realizes that it's her actual therapist. So now we realize that this whole time, this wasn't her therapist there, it was the scary entity. And Rose decides that she's going to rush to her old work, and she's going to unalive Carl in front of her boss so that there's a witness, so the entity can transfer over into the witness. Then Rose wakes up in her car in the hospital parking lot and realizes that she didn't take Carl's life, that was all a hallucination, and she finally figures out she knows what she needs to do in order for this to end. Rose then goes to her childhood home that's just been abandoned this whole time, and she decides what she's going to do is take her life there so there are no witnesses, so the entity can't transfer into anybody. Before Rose can end her life, before the entity actually enters inside of her, we hear that Joel is banging on the door outside the house, and now the entity successfully enters inside of Rose, completely possessing her. Joel breaks down the door, enters the house, but Rose is now completely possessed, and she unalives herself by lighting herself on fire, and now the curse is transferred to Joel. The end.
If you see a person that has a biologically impossible characteristic, run away and hide.
The scariest horror movies to watch this Halloween and spooky season? Deadstream from 2022. The movie follows a disgraced social media influencer who tries to win back his following by live streaming one night alone in a haunted house. During this one night stay, he accidentally upsets a vengeful spirit, and this big comeback turns into the fight for his life. This movie is the perfect blend between horror and comedy. I also love how it's found footage, so that adds a whole new dynamic to the film. This movie is a wild ride. I think it's fun as hell. There's a whole lot of crazy shit taking place. Our main character, the social media influencer, he's unlikable, but at the same time, you can't help but to root for him, because although he put himself in this predicament, nobody should go out like this. And like I said, although the movie is horror and comedy, it does have the right amount of scares in here to get you. So although you're gonna be having fun, you're also gonna be jumping out of your seat, out of your couch every now and then. And the best way to describe this film, it's as if Evil Dead were found footage.
Guilty!
And that's exactly what this film is. It's a found footage Evil Dead movie, and that's what's so great about it. This is one of my favorite horror movies of 2022. I don't think it gets talked about as much as it should be. It's spooky season. This is the perfect watch for it. You guys can check this one out on Shudder if you haven't already. If you have seen the movie, let me know in the comments what you thought about it and what your favorite Halloween spooky season movie is.
There's this guy on TikTok. His name's Drew the Prophet. He's going viral right now, and a lot of people are talking about him.
4 months ago, God told me that a tsunami coming to California and destroying the coast of California. Y'all ever heard of the San Andreas Fault? Yeah. It's finna get ready to happen, brother. I came from Atlanta, Georgia, bro. I don't know nobody in California.
He left his home in Atlanta, decided to go to California because he had a dream. What he claims is that God came to him in a dream and told him that he has to warn all of California because there's going to be a natural disaster that's pretty much a tsunami will take out all of California. Word. And he's not too far off because there is a lot of studies saying there's something going on with the fault lines. Yeah. It is something that could happen. This is the West Coast. Okay. Do you see the water? That's what he's claiming is going to happen.
Oh, so it's going to just
to the USA. Yeah. Now check this out. Check this out. This is all of California, fam. This is moving into like almost Texas over there, right? Yeah. Check this out though. What's over here? Why are those still up?
Is that Hollywood?
Hack this. No. Why do all the celebrities live in the hill? Why do they all live in the mountain? Why do they all live like way up there, bro?
What started out as a thrupple's dream turned into a chilling nightmare ending in torture and death. This is the horrific case of the horror in room 15. A three-way relationship between Zachary Abel, Aileen Sadin, and Christina Aragu began in 2017. The throuple lived in Florida, and although the relationship looked fine from the outside, the dynamic soon got difficult. An anonymous friend reported that there was always one person left out, and there was a lot of jealousy within the throuple. She states that soon things began to spiral out of control. In April 2018, things came to a horrific end. Police got a call stating that there was a body off Highway 98. Now, this body was beaten so badly that police stated it must have been a torture death. The body was so disfigured from this horrific torture that they could not identify who this person was, and they also didn't have any ID on them. Less than 24 hours later, though, police got another call. This was a report of a suspicious scene at a motel room. The motel was Sportsman's Lodge Motel in East Point, Florida. It would be proven later that the room had been a bloodbath, but there had been a cleanup operation. A substance called luminol was really helpful for forensic teams in order to show up where blood had been cleaned away. Forensic teams tested this blood and soon revealed who their victim was. It was Aileen. Investigators soon found out that the throuple had been in that hotel room together. So what on earth had gone on? A friend stated that Christina had been very controlling and used her wealthy, powerful dad to get her own way. It's also believed that Aileen was the one who was the least keen to be in this three-way relationship. The relationship reportedly was quite toxic and sometimes would even get violent. Aileen was chillingly warned by a friend to get out or someone would end up dead. The throuple had checked into their motel after going on a road trip in Texas. The relationship was extremely strained, and Aileen had even texted and called her friend saying she was fearful and felt like she was in danger. After checking out of the motel, Zach and Christina showed up at a friend's house. The friend asked, "Where's Aileen?" The pair told him she'd run away, and when he called them out and said he felt like they were lying, Zachary apparently started crying and stated she's dead. He reported this to police and the couple were charged. Zach was convicted of second-degree murder and got life in prison. Christina agreed to testify against him and claimed she was pushed into it. She pleaded guilty and got 20 years.
This one hit me right in my lover girl heart. Welcome back to part 148 of my series, watching every horror movie of 2024. Today's movie is Your Monster, which comes out on October 25th. I got an early screening thanks to Pixel Sane Media. It's about this girl who's going through like the roughest part of her life, but one day she comes across this monster who is living in her closet, and he just flips her whole world upside down. I am obsessed with this movie. This is so freaking cute. It is a romantic comedy though, so if you are going into this like expecting a horror or just like a lot of horror elements, there really isn't a lot of horror elements other than the fact that he's a monster. But luckily, my second favorite movie genre after horror movies is romantic comedies. The movie is just so wholesome and meaningful and absolutely freaking hilarious. I was not expecting it to be as funny as it was. But we get this super quirky, soft-spoken personality from Melissa Barrera's character, and then we get this like terrifying but charming and hilarious like personality from Tommy Dewey's monster character, and just their chemistry together. flawless. I'm so happy we got to see Melissa Barrera in this kind of role. Also, we get to hear her singing Voice of an Angel. Now, this is a little PSA to anybody that's going through a breakup. You need to watch this movie. This is a must-watch breakup movie, okay? Overall, I gave Your Monster an 8 out of 10. I absolutely loved this one. Let me know in the comments if you are going to watch it. Again, it hits theaters October 25th.
This brand new found footage horror movie just dropped on Tubi, so of course I watched it. But is it worth your time? In hashtag missing couple, Austin and Jana are van life creators. That seems to be real as they have active social medias, and I like that little touch. They buy a remote cabin that has acres of land. They're vlogging their whole experience. We learn that one day they completely disappear from social media. An investigator who claims to be a friend tries to use the footage to uncover what happened to Austin and Jana. He visits their land to try and find them himself. This film feels realistic to begin, as we see what appears to be a man spying on our couple, but then it slowly adds in supernatural elements. These are focused around a slaughter that happened during the war on the land that they've just bought. So is this worth a watch? Austin and Jana are very likeable. The private investigator gives off really creepy vibes. Arlo the dog is a very, very good boy. I like that we get lots of dark figures just off in the background. Some of the effects in the scenes that are meant to be scary show off that lack of budget, and as always, I wonder who edited this content chronologically and then added music. If you're a diehard found footage fan who's used to struggling through some of those tropes that plague lower budget found footage films, then this is a totally decent little movie to check out. Just don't ask me to explain the ending.
Who is the Boiled One? This demonic entity, also known as Fen 228, is the main antagonist in the Dr. Nowhere analog horror video, The Boiled One Phenomenon. The Boiled One can render anyone who looks at him into a state of locked-in syndrome, a condition where the victim is fully aware but completely paralyzed, except for vertical eye movements and blinking. Originally a Japanese soldier and criminal named Mutsuhiro Watanabe, also known as the Bird, he served in World War II. Watanabe was notorious for his extreme sadism, killing and torturing many. Now he continues his reign of terror, inflicting the same suffering on anyone who crosses his path. Beware, because encountering the Boiled One means facing a fate worse than death.
I'm just sitting down to film this review for Smile 2 for you guys, but for some reason, I just feel the need to show you this water bottle in screen all the time. Totally not product placement or anything, you guys. But really obvious, painful product placement aside, I did really like this movie. I thought Smile 2 was miles above the first one. I like that we changed the setting. I like that we have a pop star and we have this risk of like what's gonna happen if she winds up on stage even though she has the smile curse. I did have a few issues with the movie, but I will have to give spoilers for that, so here is your spoiler warning. You have been warned. I don't like how half of this movie gets retconned at the end. I think we were doing a lot of really fun twists and turns, and I think we were setting up for something really interesting. We were going for more of a Flatliners vibe, and I was really excited. So to find out that all of it meant nothing, and she really was just on stage at the end, and the entire second half of the movie didn't happen, I don't know, I wasn't really messing with it. But you know what this movie did do? It made me so thirsty. I was drinking a giant icy the entire time, and halfway through I was like, God, I really just want a bottle of water. I hope the bit was worth it. This was like $4.
The scariest horror movies to watch alone at night, but make sure you do it at your own risk. Now before we get into that, if you love all things horror, all things spooky just as much as I do, be sure to hit that follow button. Darkness Falls follows a town that is cursed after the death of a woman in the 1800s who was tragically killed by a mob that believed that she was killing children. And her evil spirit has been back for revenge ever since, but the spirit comes in the form of the Tooth Fairy. And it's up to a group of townspeople to put this curse and evil spirit to an end before it wipes out the entire population. As a little kid, you couldn't tell me nothing. This is one of the scariest horror movies from my childhood. It made me afraid of the dark and the Tooth Fairy. Check it out on Prime Video. Creep follows a man who responds to an online ad to film a stranger at his house for the day. He wants to make a movie for his unborn child, but as the day goes on, his requests become more bizarre. And we see just why he's referred to as a creep, because this movie is scary, it's bizarre, it's odd. You just got to experience it for yourself. Check it out on Prime Video. The Others follows a woman living with her servants and her 2 children in her mansion, and her children have a photosensitivity disease, meaning that the sunlight causes her children harm, so she blocks off any sunlight that can get into the house. But that's not even it. The children believe that they're seeing ghosts in the house, but the mother thinks that it's the servants playing a prank. Until these events become even more terrifying as the days go on. I'm not even gonna say anything other than that this is one of the best horror movies that I've ever seen, and it has one of the greatest plot twists. Check it out on Prime Video. Quarantine follows a film crew who are recording in an apartment building in Los Angeles after a distress call was made. When they get there, they're trapped in, and they realize why they were trapped in, because there's a crazy outbreak that has taken place. And of course now, there's nowhere out, and they're in the fight for their lives. If you want a scary found footage movie, check this one out on Hulu. VHS follows a group of criminals who are hired to steal a VHS tape from a creepy old house. However, when they get there, they find a dead body and dozens of other tapes with crazy ass things on it. This is probably the best movie in the VHS series, and it's most likely the scariest. And these tapes are pretty damn horrifying. They had me shook when I first watched this in high school. Be sure to check this one out on Tubi if you can handle it.
Hello?
If you know why you're supposed to close your blinds facing upwards on the inside, instead of like this at night, you might live in the Appalachian Mountains.
Yo, we should actually turn around. Appalachia? What? I think we should actually turn around. Like, seriously. Why? No, because this is actually where you don't go, Patrick. Appalachian. For it, I did not know this is the Appalachian Trail, Patrick. What? I did not know this is that. We should turn around, turn around, actually. I'm serious, Patrick. I'm serious, turn around. What? I just looked at the fucking map and it said Appalachian. I was joking when I said Appalachia earlier. Patrick, turn the fuck around, man. Where? How the fuck am I gonna do? Dude, fucking hairpinning, man. What the fuck you mean hairpinning? Dude, we're not sleeping. We're shooting straight to Church. Oh, I need to fucking see right now. Oh my god, am I fucking thinking away the fucking here? Dude, it's a fucking Appalachian, dude. I turned the fuck around. Lock the doors, man. You don't see all the YouTube videos about Appalachia, bro? Where you do not go at nighttime, especially 2 o'clock in the morning on this fucking shit. Holy shit. Slow down, man. I'm not trying to die. Fucking making me go fast. Or ride the brakes. I am.
These identical twin sisters were pure evil. In the quiet town of Bloomsville in 1952, there were 2 identical twin sisters named Taylor and Dory. They seemed like ordinary, sweet girls, but behind closed doors, they were evil. One day, a new girl named Mary Jane moved into the neighborhood, and the twins grew jealous. Mary quickly became popular, and the attention shifted away from them. The twins didn't like that. One evening, they invited her to a tea party in the woods. The next day, Mary was reported missing. Weeks passed, and rumors began to swirl. The town grew suspicious, but no one could prove anything. Until one night, the twins' mother named Anaconda heard them whispering in their room. She pressed her ear against the door. What she heard sent chills down her spine. "We need another one. Mary wasn't enough." Terrified, their mother opened the door to confront them, only to find the room empty, except for 2 dolls on their beds. Identical dolls with the faces of her daughters, and a third one with Mary's face, staring right at her. The twins were never seen again. Some say they still live around the area in the forests, looking for their next victim.
The movie Incantation is a found footage horror film that people genuinely thought was cursed. Even if you watch this horror movie, you will be cursed. That was the consensus. One online forum post reads, "Is Incantation movie actually safe for me to watch? Can the movie invite actual demonic influence into my home?" Viewers have reported feeling cursed after watching the movie. They say, "I just watched Incantation last night. I said the chant like 20 times. Power went out a couple minutes later. I've never been so scared in my whole adult life." Another comment reads, "Just watch Incantation. I'm so freaking cursed now." I think this movie just literally cursed me. The movie Incantation explores the idea of a shared curse, meaning just by watching the movie, by seeing the footage and repeating the incantation in the movie, you now share the curse. The movie tricks you into staring at this symbol. The main character tells the audience, because it's found footage, it's like she's vlogging. She tells the audience that the symbol is for blessings. She asks the audience to help save her daughter from the curse by chanting the incantation together. And she thanks everyone by wishing her daughter blessings so that she can be cured. But the truth of the movie is, the symbol, the incantation, all of it is a curse. The mother has asked the audience to repeat these things because she knows they are a curse so that they can take the burden of the curse away from her daughter. They can share the curse with the audience.
हुंजा की हसीन वादियों में जमा देने वाले सफर के दरमियान पांचों दोस्तों का सफर एक बेपनाह खूबसूरती की तलाश में था। लेकिन इस दफा पहाड़ों ने न सिर्फ अपना हुस्न दिखाया, बल्कि अंधेरे में छुपी हुई मखलूकात से अपना पर्दा भी उठाया। जिन रास्तों पे वो मुस्कुरा के चले थे, वही रास्ते उन्हें जिन्नात के बसेरे तक ले गए।
The urban legend about mermaids, and it involves Mario Moreno, aka Cantinflas. I don't know if you know who that is.
Of course, yeah.
For those of you who don't know who that is a very, very famous Mexican actor. At the very peak of his career, he had everything he ever wanted. He was a top comedian for, the Mexican industry. He had the houses, the money, his family was set. But in this urban legend, it's told that even though he had everything he ever wanted, there was one thing that he was never able to experience.
What?
See a mermaid. So he was at a bar one day by himself, and then some guy by the name of Carlos Lorenzo approaches him and is like, do you really want to see a mermaid? And he's like, yeah, that's all I ever wanted. He had this obsession with mermaids and he wanted to see a real life mermaid. So this guy Carlos tells him, okay, what you're gonna do is you're gonna buy a mansion by the edge of the sea, and you're gonna have a statue of you facing out into the ocean, and whenever you go at night and you stand next to that statue and you look down into the water, you're gonna see mermaids. So that's exactly what he did, and he actually made a statue exactly how the legend says, that's facing, waiting for something in the ocean.
Oh, it's a real life statue?
Yeah.
Oh, what the?
It is also said that sometimes at night you can still see some mermaids approaching, waiting for him to be at the edge of the house and shit.
What the?
Like I said, this is just an urban legend.
Yeah, of course.
And also, I want to pull up a couple of videos that went viral years ago. And I don't,
whenever mermaids were popular?
at this time, bro, I feel like mermaids were like at its peak.
I feel like what kind of boosted its popularity was the mockumentary, Mermaids the Body Found.
The scariest mythical creatures in the world. From Arizona. Skinwalker. From the ocean. Mermaid. From Japan. Tick Tick. From Puerto Rico. Chupacabras. From the ocean. CHTULHU. From Canada. Wendigo.
A 2000 slasher starring John Bon Jovi. Sign me up, bitch. Let's do it. Crywolf opens up with this girl running through the woods, clearly in distress before she is ultimately... Then we cut and we meet our main character, Owen, who is attending this new prep school. Right off the bat, he meets this girl named Dodger that we can tell he has a crush on. And he also meets his roommate, Tom, yes, Jared Padalecki. And they invite him to hang out with their group one night where they play this game called Crywolf. So in addition to Tom and Dodger, the group consists of Graham, Lewis, Mercedes, Regina, and Randall. So pretty much the object of this game is one of the players is labeled the wolf and they have to lie and the rest of the group has to figure out who it is. So the whole point of the game is fucking lying and deceiving each other. So Owen ruffles some feathers because he calls some people out, but then the next day we see him going to his journalism class, which is taught by Mr. Walker, aka John Bon Jovi. He then meets the rest of the group for lunch where they discuss this girl Becky whose body was just found. And we know it's the girl running through the woods from the beginning. So they're discussing that and also how they want to play Cry Wolf again. But then Dodger points out something that Owen had said the night before, which is that they all know each other too well so they can tell when they're lying. So she proposes this idea to expand Cry Wolf to the entire school. And Owen comes up with this idea to do this by sending out an email to the whole school, coming up with this urban legend about this serial killer that is going from campus to campus killing students. So the group comes up with this super intricate lie about how the killer wears this orange ski mask and this camouflage jacket. His weapon of choice is this hunting knife, and they even lay out at previous campuses the order of deaths and how they happened. So they send out the email that night, and the next morning the news is spreading like wildfire. Everybody on campus is talking about it. But then suddenly Owen gets this instant message from somebody called the Wolf, and it's pretty threatening. So he shows Tom, and the two of them assume that it's Dodger doing it. So they go to pull a prank on her as revenge, but then she starts fake drowning as a reverse prank. And she also tells them there's no way she could have sent those messages because she was studying with Regina. A little while later, Owen and Tom come back to their dorm room to find it completely trashed, but mostly just Tom's stuff. And on Tom's laptop, they find a bloody tongue ring, which they know belongs to Randall. Tom accuses Regina because she's made fake blood for pranks before, but she insists that she was on a field trip, it wasn't her. So Owen thinks Dodger is lying about the IM, so he confronts her and she admits the truth, which is that she was visiting her mother in town because this is where she's from. So she admits that even though this is a super rich school, she's here on scholarship and she's from town. So the two of them are having this conversation in the library and they like kiss, but we see a figure in an orange ski mask stalking them. And Owen notices it too. So Owen believes Dodger, and now that makes him believe that Randall is the one behind all of this. So he tries to track Randall down and calls his girlfriend who goes to a different school, but she tells him that Randall never showed up when he was supposed to. So Owen again goes to find Dodger, but he finds her making out with Mr. Walker. Scandal. So Owen goes to journalism class the next day and he's kind of giving Mr. Walker an attitude. But as Owen goes to reach in his backpack, this giant hunting knife falls out in front of the whole class. So Mr. Walker's like, you just pulled a weapon in my class, like I need to take you to the headmaster. Owen's like, you should probably reconsider because I know you're having a relationship with a student, aka Dodger, and I'll out you if you try and tell the headmaster. So Mr. Walker agrees because otherwise he'll be outed as a predator. So it's Halloween night, and as Owen is working, he's attacked by the Wolf, which of course this person's description perfectly matches the email that they had sent out. Owen manages to escape and he goes to this Halloween party and tells the others, and they all deduce that they think it was Tom pulling a prank on him to get him to come to the Halloween party. So Owen now goes to prank Tom as revenge by moving his car, but as he gets into the car, the Wolf is in the back seat. So the Wolf chases Owen with a knife and he manages to get the attention of security, who then points a gun at the Wolf, who then takes off their masks and reveals themselves to be Mercedes playing a prank. So many fucking pranks going on here. And the reason she did it is to prove that women can be attackers too, because the whole time they've all been referring to the Wolf as a man. So this time the two of them actually are brought into the headmaster's office, and Owen's in deep shit, and the headmaster tells him, I'll decide your fate over the weekend, so you have to stay here. So the rest of the group stays too, and Owen calls them all to the chapel where they had played Cry Wolf the first night, because he wants to get to the bottom of all the shit that's going on, the messages he's getting, Randall being missing, and they all reveal that they've played some part in this. So Lewis is the one that trashed their dorm room. The bloody piercing that he left wasn't Randall's, it was fake blood, and it was with one of Dodger's earrings. Regina was the one in the library stalking them that night. So everybody's fucking pranking each other, so we don't know what's real, what's fake. But they still can't find Randall. So they all go back to their dorms, and Lewis is on the phone with Mercedes when a figure appears behind her. She thinks it's Tom playing yet another prank, but Lewis is like, Tom is right here with me. And Mercedes is attacked by the Wolf as Lewis runs to go help her. So Owen tries to go for help, and he, Tom, and Regina end up back in the chapel where they look in one of the confessionals and they see Randall's bloody body. So Owen tells the other two to wait for him because he needs to go find Dodger to make sure she's safe. And as he's looking for her, he witnesses Lewis being attacked and offed by the Wolf. So Owen runs outside where he sees that Mr. Walker's car is still in the parking lot. So Owen goes to Mr. Walker's office where he hears the phone ring, and when he picks it up, it's Dodger crying because she found Mercedes dead. So she tells Owen she's going to come meet him at Mr. Walker's office, and Owen looks out and sees her approaching through the window. But behind her, he sees the Wolf approach and attack her and kill her. So Owen's panicking when suddenly Mr. Walker comes in. And in his hand, he's holding an orange ski mask and a camouflage jacket, as well as the fucking hunting knife. So Owen at this point had found a gun that was in Mr. Walker's desk. During their exchange, it's revealed that Mr. Walker was also having a relationship with Becky, who was the student that was found murdered earlier. So Owen now puts together that Mr. Walker is the Wolf. A struggle ensues between the two of them, but ultimately Owen is able to shoot Mr. Walker and kill him. And as he does, the door opens and Tom and Regina walk into the room. So we cut to outside, the police have arrived and they're interviewing the group. And it's at this point the group reveals that the whole thing was a fucking prank. Randall's alive, Mercedes is alive, Lewis is alive. They were all fucking with Owen, who is then arrested for murdering Mr. Walker. So Owen gets to the police station where he meets his father, who tells him that everything's going to be okay because the charges are being dropped because they're looking at it now as self-defense. Because sure enough, the gun that was Mr. Walker's that Owen used to shoot him is the same gun that was used in Becky's murder. And the police found records indicating that Mr. Walker was involved with Becky and then killed her in a crime of passion. So Owen is released, and as he's leaving the police station, he sees Dodger waiting for him. And she says to Owen, "I would have never played this game if I knew that Mr. Walker was cheating on me and was involved with Becky." And it's at this point that Owen realizes what really happened. Dodger orchestrated this whole fucking thing. Dodger is the one that killed Becky in the beginning because she was jealous that Mr. Walker was having a relationship with her. And she's the one that set up the whole game and the whole prank, knowing that it would ultimately lead Owen to blame Mr. Walker. So Owen calls her out on this and she looks at him and tells him that he's crazy. But then ultimately she says, even if it was true, no one would believe you. And she walks away and the movie ends.